So we are live. Welcome to the John Topovich Show. I am your host, John Meisberg, and today we have our guest, Sari Luna.
Hello.
How's it going?
Really good, actually. I'm super excited to be here. It's going to be really fun.
Oh, yeah. So, Sari, she knows a lot about, quote unquote, how you can tap into and unlock your creativity. She teaches a creative painting workshop and is about to give a free webinar on November 11th. So, first of all, I just wanted to make sure we get that off right off the top of the bat. Like, how do they sign up for that?
So you just have to go to my website, sarilunadesigns.com, and you just scroll all the way to the bottom and you put your email in to subscribe, and I will send you reminders and notify you when we go live. So it's pretty exciting.
Okay, and again, that's sarilunadesigns.com right there. So if you're interested in taking her up on this great opportunity, just check that out.
Yeah, I usually don't teach for free.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. hard to beat the price.
That's right.
So we're going to just take some time to talk about the topic of creativity in general and everything around it, and some of Sari's experience with creating art. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting episode. So tag a friend and share this video with anyone that you think might be interested in hearing about how they could be more creative themselves. And also, I've asked the question in the comments below, what do you do that's creative yourself? I'm interested in hearing from all of you out there. So leave a comment and let us know. Cool. So,
What
are you going to say?
I was just going to say there's a lot of really interesting creative people here in Seattle, and I've had the opportunity to be able to work with them and get to know them. We've got music producers and artists and digital artists and so many really cool people. And, everybody's got one of the big things that I've noticed is the people right now that are bored are the people that don't have some type of outlet to go to put their focus on. And I think it's really important that everybody has a little bit of something like that.
Keeps you from going crazy.
Yes. Especially, right now with our wonderful 2020 events going on.
Yeah. My thing actually lately has been running a Facebook group for food humor called Bon Appetit. And it started off as a joke, but it's become less of a joke now.
I love it. I love this group so much. I go to it every single day. It brings me a smile.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's stupid, but it's I think everybody does need a thing though, a thing to take your mind off of the chaos and the politics and the terrible things. Everyone needs a creative outlet of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got several.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
but we're here to talk today about some of yours and how you've explored your creativity. So I thought maybe it'd be interesting to be start this interview off by saying why don't you just tell us about your journey? How did you get to where you are today? Where, what makes you you? How have you got into what you're doing now?
Oh, yeah.
So, it's a big question.
I grew up in the woods as a kid on top of a 2-mile-long dirt road at the end of the last house on the road and backed up by just acres and acres of woods.
Wow.
So I grew up in this environment where I would just go outside in nature, and nature's very inspirational to me. So a lot of what I did was outdoor activities and indoor activities by myself, which turned out to be art. So I always would draw dragons and fantasy things, and I would draw portraits of my friends, and it was just this wonderful outlet for me that kept me sane, really, as well as the nature. So a lot of my artwork is really ethereal and naturally inspired, mixed with some current events and maybe some illusionary aspects. And I moved around quite a bit, and I landed here in Issaquah, Washington, again, which is also where I grew up. And just over the last 5 years, I moved to Seattle and really started getting involved doing art shows and really expanding that aspect of my life. And growing up, Bob Ross was just such a huge figure in my life. I would always be watching Bob Ross. And as a kid, I was like, I want to be an art teacher. I want to be Bob Ross. And it's this.
Hold on a second. How is he so calm? Like,
I love him.
he's like permanently on Xanax or something.
No, he's just zen.
He's zen.
He knows what to do with himself. When he's feeling certain things, right? So
I aspire to be as calm as he is.
This is what I really think is that sometimes if I'm upset, have an emotional whatever, like I'm not doing so great, I treat myself like a baby. Mm-hmm. Have you slept? Have you eaten? And have you painted?
There you go.
Because you need an outlet, body, mind, spirit, right? So it's really important that we are able to connect with ourselves in that way. And I think really, truly, that Bob Ross was just this gentle spirit because he knew who he was and what he enjoyed doing. And he wasn't afraid to just get out there and try new things. And it's super inspirational to me.
Yeah.
So
I can see that. And I read that you have some experience with doing 3D art for video games. Is that true?
Yeah, I went to Bellevue College for digital media arts, and I got my degree in 3D video game art. And I haven't been as in touch with it as I would like to be, just because the equipment sometimes can cost a lot of money. And I really wanted to focus on what do I have at my disposal to be creative with. So that's definitely something I want to do more with. The last things that I really did was just recently after graduating, I worked on some projects where I actually used a game engine called CryEngine, and I went to this 3D video game school after that called Future Poly, and I think they're not going on anymore, which is really sad. But so they taught me how to take my models and texture them and put them into the game engine and set up all the tech stuff in the game engine. So I've actually been able to play a game that I made myself. So that's definitely something I would really like to do in the future, have like a virtual art gallery of some kind. I think in VR, I think that would be super, super interesting right now, especially everybody's at home. And it would be, I know a lot of museums are actually doing virtual art galleries as well. So
have you ever used a program called Tilt Brush? Have you ever heard of that? It's like a virtual reality art program where you can create art in like a 360 space.
Ooh,
I bet you would love that.
I bet I would. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Android Jones's microdose program that he did?
No. Is it is a VR experience that feels like you're tripping?
It's a VR experience, yeah, and you actually paint with 3D objects, and you paint with so it's
here, check this out.
Oh, you're gonna pull it up? It's so cool.
I can pull up your thing too. After the ad, we'll have to wait.
Yeah,
there's an ad.
So yeah, with the Android Jones, he's a visualizer, where he does. Oh, here we go. This is Tilt Brush. Oh, how cool is that? Yeah, it's basically like this. It's really similar.
So you can just create whatever you want in like a 3D, like a virtual reality space. And then you can actually then take whatever you create and save it out and do things with what you've created.
That is legit.
Yeah.
I want to get into that.
It's like a 360 canvas. I want to look up what's the...
It's the Android Jones microdose. And he does a lot of visualizations for music events. And so he does digital artwork, and this was one of his projects, and he actually took it on tour with him, and I got a chance to use it, and I waited an hour and a half in line to use this for 10 minutes, and it was so worth it.
Oh my God.
It is so worth it.
Wow.
And you can just paint, you can change whatever objects are coming out of your brush. So it's almost like you're painting with 3D objects and light in a way.
See. No drugs required.
No. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So yeah, 3D video game art, and I made like this weird creature. So I was applying to be on Guild Wars 2. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a MMO PC game.
I've heard of it.
So I was applying to be an intern, and I didn't quite make the cut. And then my computer decided to not function any longer. So I'm gonna get back into that later. There's some really cool software out there, free. What is it? Blender. You don't have to pay for it. Open source software.
I love
so there's a lot of
open
really
source.
cool stuff going on. A lot of people are making the switch to Blender. So
I love the concept of open source that, you have enough people that have put their brains together and said, despite cost, despite money, we just all want to make this thing. I love the concept behind that.
Yeah, and make it accessible, because the software out there, it's pretty steep pricing. I tried to switch to open source software like GIMP and other things for alternatives to Adobe software, and it just doesn't compete. I just can't do it.
I wonder how many people actually got their start on pirated Adobe software, and now if it's like, and then it's
excuse me.
I mean, it's just a fact. And I think they know that. I think Adobe knows that, and they're like, all right, well, you guys, you can sign up for our monthly thing now if you want.
It's actually very hard to navigate on their system to find the just purchase, but it is there. I'm an Adobe subscriber. Creative Suite, yeah.
So what programs do you use the most?
Oh, I use a lot of Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Photoshop is my main. I do a lot of my painting mock-ups in Photoshop.
And you have a Wacom tablet or something?
I do have a Wacom tablet.
Yeah.
I bought it in 2013, so it's a little older. I have the large bamboo. And I used to use it with ZBrush for 3D sculpting and whatnot. So I haven't picked up my tablet in a while. It's time. I've been eyeballing it recently, okay, I'm gonna draw with you instead of in a sketch pad and all that. But I like analog a lot too. That's what's interesting. Yeah, just give me a big stack of paper and I'm gonna spread it all over the floor with a bunch of drawings, and it's just so satisfying. Do you want to see what I do?
Yeah. So something that you said to me when I was talking to you about doing an interview is you were saying that you that you create custom paintings for clients without them even knowing what they want.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the process behind that, but I was I asked if you could bring maybe some examples of artwork that you could just show in the beginning. I think that maybe would be kind of fun to see some stuff.
Well, I have one here that I finished, which spurred my current there we go. So currently I'm doing a commission for somebody who saw this painting and said, "Oh my God, I have to have one." But I don't know what I want. So we did an interview, and I do a free video consult. It takes about a half an hour to an hour, depending on how much you really know if you want. And this fella came in not knowing really what he wanted, but he liked the Celtic Daranaut that I did, and he's like, okay. And so I just have done enough commissions so that I know how to pull it out of you. Oops,
I see.
I'm so sorry. So I know how to pull it out of you. So I just interview you. I'm like, okay, so what do you do? Where are you going to be putting your painting? I'm going to be putting it at home. Okay. So what other types of art do you have in your home, if any? Okay, well, show me. All right. So now what do you do when you're at home? Do you relax? Do you cook? What is your vibe? What's your thing? And then from there,
you create a prototype.
I just take notes on this. I have this big tablet of paper. Yes, paper. And I just write notes as I go along. And so I was, for example, he had some artwork from Final Fantasy. He had a really cool silhouette of a pirate ship and this crazy red sunset. And so I kind of got a vibe from him based off of that. And so you think, okay, this is kind of some dramatic differentiation between the subject matter. You like the Celtic, you have Final Fantasy, but I was able to just kind of hone in on what do you like about these pieces? Okay, I see your color palette, let's bring it all together. And oftentimes when I'm setting up an art show, I have artwork that looks drastically different, but there's enough pieces to where I can make the flow of it one similarity in this piece that connects with this piece, and then I'm going to put something that connects with that. And then you can get a kind of visual flow, a really nice flow. So not only do I create the custom artwork, but I like kind of figure out, okay, how are you going to have your home laid out? You know, how are these pieces going to tie together? And so we just kind of went from there. And so I'm super excited about this piece. He's like the perfect client, honestly. And he had no idea what he wanted. No, he hasn't seen it yet. I sent him a draft yesterday, but I actually have to finish the draft and get that out to him. But it's going to be really epic.
Well, it's beautiful.
Excited.
It's very,
Thank
very
you.
Swirly.
Yeah, so it's like trippy, right? Like I
Yeah.
really like illusions. I called this one Breeze because you look at it and you're almost like it's moving, right? So I really like optical illusions, and any way I can marry that with, some nature aspects or.
I almost feel like I want to put it on like some kind of device that rotates the picture and keeps spinning it so that it keeps.
Like when I posted my video of this, when I was working on it, I just kept spinning it.
Yeah.
So you want to know a story about how this started? It's super funny.
Sure.
So I'm at the beach this summer with some friends, and we're socially distancing. And my friend had his top off, and I had the yellow. I thought I was going to do like an oceanscape and have it be like through a fisheye lens. And my friend had his top off, and it kind of started to look like a boob or something. And he goes, "Oh, are you doing a portrait of my chest here?" So this was titled.
Like the center is the areola.
Yeah. So this was titled Mitchie's Nippy for like an hour.
I think that should still be the unofficial title.
This is Breathe, aka Mitchie's Nippy. And I sent it to him and I go, "Hey, do you recognize this?" He goes, "Oh my God, is that my portrait?"
That's awesome.
I'm like, yeah. That's it.
So I think your process is very fascinating to me. It's like they don't necessarily know exactly what they want, but you're able to like tease it out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm like, it's kind of like what you're doing here. You're like, who are you? What do you like to feel? What do you do? What's your interests?
That's an important life skill in general for everything, really. You just to be able to try to get out of a person something that you know is there, that you're trying to help them discover it for themselves.
Help me help you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And then, from there, once you get down to the specifics from the generalities, you can hone in, and all of a sudden their eyes light up and you've hit the thing on the money. And they're like, a lot of times people want to enjoy art, but they don't, feel like they have access to that part of themselves. So I've, like you said, like really been trying to work on helping people really tap into that creativity. And everybody has it too. That's the thing. People always tell me like, "Oh, I'm not creative. I can't even draw a stick figure." Yeah, right. Ha ha. I'm just here for fun. At the end of the class, they come to me and they're like, I never thought I would be able to paint this. Thank you so much.
I've drawn the best stick figure.
I know, the stick
and
figure.
I love him.
It's so great. Exactly. Yeah.
So, I was thinking like something that I've heard somebody say, I don't know where it came from, but somebody said like, you should never buy a piece of art unless you look at it and you're like, I must have it. Like that kind of feeling has to hit you. I don't know where I heard that, but I wonder like if you have the art created yourself, like if you have it custom made, then like when you look at it, you must feel that way. Like feel some connection to it because it's like it represents something that like has come from like your thoughts or like your desires. And I think that having something made custom probably elicits those feelings more likely than just walking through an art gallery and looking at a bunch of other people's arts that you didn't have created.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially.
Yes. I've seen both happen.
Okay.
Right? So
it just depends.
Because you're right. You shouldn't buy a piece of art unless you really connect with it. But oftentimes you'll see an art and you get like that, or you see an art. I did an art. You see a piece of artwork and you're like, oh my God, that touches me in my soul. Like there's been some instances where I'm painting something and somebody will come up to me and gosh, the story I'm thinking I can't share because it's personal to them, but there's a emotional connection and they see the piece and it makes them feel something or it elicits a memory of something. So oftentimes, it's not common that you will always see something you connect with like that. But when you do, you need to come back to it. I was at an art show and I had a piece of artwork out and a friend had walked by and they were like, "Oh my God, I love that. What is that?" And then they left. And 3 days later, I saw him at an outing and he's like, "Oh my God, I keep thinking about that painting." I'm like, "Do you still have that painting? Did you sell that painting?" I go, "No, I still have it." I go, "Do you want it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think so. I think so." And like a few days later, he messages me and he's like, "I have to have that painting. Like, how much do you want for that painting?"
I have to
And
have it.
like, those are like the best that's a really important gift you can give an artist anyway. Like that's a memory that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, "Oh my God, I have to have it." And I was able to like go and hang it in his house and see his big smile. It's so important. And then like you were saying, the other part of that is if you have a piece custom created, especially with my process, I think, where I'm really heavily involving you. I'm making the painting about you. And I think as artists, we when we do custom work, we need to put ourselves aside and look at what does my client want? Like, what is it that you liked about my other work? What is it that, and then when what I do is I do the interview with the video or in person, pre-COVID. And I do the interview and then I do the mock-up. They approve the mock-up. And then I get halfway done with the painting. I show them that. This is their last opportunity to change the painting. You get a couple shots in there to change the painting, but after the last preview, you're all excited about it, or maybe you sound a little disappointed. I had this one commission I did, and when I showed him the painting halfway through, he was like, "Oh, I thought it was going to be more swirly than that." And I go, "Oh," and I look at it and I go, "Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying." So then I change the direction, right? So it's important that we take what they say because they're paying us.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a job still.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the whole process.
Yeah.
And
we call that agile, or I think agile is the word I use where I work, is like you're always going through iterations with your clients. Like
Right.
you analyze the situation and you create a design, and then you go through like a feedback loop with them, and then after design you go through an MVP, like a minimal viable product from developing it, and then you go through another iteration with the client, like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
But you spend the least amount of time so you don't go way too far into the project, and then
Yes.
they're like, "Nope, hate it." You're like, "Uh-oh."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfectly said. Yeah. And then you also have to be mindful too that you're communicative about what it is that you offer, in that sometimes they'll want you to do major drastic changes. And well, we approved this draft, so we really need to stick with that, because otherwise the change in direction can oftentimes incur more charges. So typically that doesn't happen,
As long as you
especially if you're
keep them-
communicative
Yeah,
and
as long
you
as you
keep them in the
loop. Yeah.
And that's exactly why I do it, right? Because then there's not going to be any of that typically. So it's really important to keep them in the loop and make sure that they feel involved. And then by the time that they get that painting, they're already emotionally invested and feeling like they're involved throughout the process.
Almost like they created it, but you just helped execute it. Kinda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something you said earlier about I forget the exact part, but I was thinking about that there's this TV show, The Office, and
Yeah.
like, Pam is an artist, and she like paints, I think she like draws the actual office from the parking lot, and she enters it
Yes.
in an art show, and everybody walks by her gallery and nobody gives a shit. They're just like, whatever. And then her boss shows up, Steve Carell, and he sees it and he looks at it and he's like, "This is amazing." And she goes like, "What?" And he's like, "I must have it." And then he was like, "You've done such a good job." And she starts crying.
I love that episode. I love that episode. It was so beautiful.
I think that's what I was thinking, is like sometimes something can resonate with somebody very strongly, even though they weren't a part of the process. Like it speaks to them in some way.
Yeah.
Like, for him, seeing the building is like, it represents like maybe family to him, or I don't
Yeah.
know. It was
You know,
nice.
you spend what most of your life at work.
Yeah.
So, if you if you connect with it, and I mean,
Yeah.
Steve Carell in that, he loves his job. It's very, it's very important to him. So I thought that was a really cool episode. I think she was like showing it in Buffalo, New York, or something like that. And
Yeah.
but I just remember
Amish
that.
town or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. No, that really connected with me. I connected with that a lot. Big surprise.
So can we see some more pics?
Yeah.
Some more pieces of art?
So would you like to see? Let's see. Well, I'll just go backwards.
What do you think of this? Is this considered art? Hold on.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Is that Harambe?
Look at this mouse pad.
Is that Harambe?
I don't even know where I got this, but I think I saw it and I said I must have it.
It's beautiful. Look
It is-
at him.
It is Harambe.
It's
Yeah.
look, he's in the heavens now, looking down on us.
Rest in peace.
Close the zoos.
Rest in power.
Rest in power, Harambe. Oh my gosh, poor guy.
I know.
That whole thing. I'm getting emotional now. Okay,
I'm
let's
sorry.
move on here. Oh jeez. So
Wow, look at this.
this is a trip and a half, right?
What is that?
Okay, so this is my COVID painting.
Wow.
This is called 6 Feet Apart, and oops, I'm trying to line it up without. Okay, huh? Hello.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got all kinds of crap going on here. I started with a top-down orthographic view of stairs to map out my sections.
So what's orthographic
It's
mean?
like there's no perspective involved. Like there's no
Okay.
angle. It's just straight on.
Interesting.
Straight on, top down. Sorry, it's a 3D speak. 3D artist speak.
Okay. I love it.
So yeah, and then I just filled in all my girls. I went and got reference images, and I mocked this up. I wish I had it pulled up to show you actually. Oh no, bad prep. Well, anyway, so we've got a waterfall. We've got some guy going up, stepping on an eyeball. There's this.
I like that on the bottom left we have the swirly nipples again.
Oh yeah, swirly nipples.
Got him back.
Dude,
There we
I
go.
always got these swirly nipples
There we
going on.
go.
This is a big theme.
Love it.
Naked women is a
Yep.
whole thing. We've got
And then this
an art niche here.
This girl up here has like 5 or 6 eyeballs.
This one? Oh,
No,
then they're
to the left
they're coming out
over there.
right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're coming out of her face, right? Like she's
Wow.
able to see. She's looking from afar, I guess. I don't know. This was just me. Like just imagine yourself in multiple areas of your home, sitting around. Like this girl over here. She's sitting there bored. She's like, "Oh, I'm lonely. I miss my friends. I miss the bar." And then this girl, she's all peace and zen. She's like the Green Man. This
like-
log is
like-
turning into a hand.
She's like part nature, part human.
So like, well,
Like
let's
the
get
hybrid.
back to nature, y'all.
So I think somebody would probably look at this who's not an artist or doesn't consider themselves to be an artist or not very creative, and they probably see that and are like, how the hell did you get that out of your brain onto a canvas? Like it just looks so intricate. And so like I think that like it's incredible, but I think that maybe it's interesting to think about like what's your process to even go about like doing something like that? Like do you have the whole thing imagined in your mind and then it's like, okay, I know exactly how it's going to be, or do you start on one section and then like one section inspires the next section? Like how do you work on something like that?
Yes.
All of it.
Yes.
Because I do creative work. I do creative work where I create animated videos.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Educational animated videos. I call it edutainment. And
cute.
and something that a lot of people don't understand is they think I'm gonna create the entire like a prototype of the entire thing before I develop it, but that's actually not how I work. The way I work usually is I'll just start like developing something and then I get ideas based off of that little piece and then it branches out and then sometimes I'm like, that didn't work, I get rid of that. It's like it's messy, right? Like for me it's messy, but a lot of when I work with stakeholders and business people, they don't understand that. They're like, no, I want to see before you spend any time, I want to see
You need to
exactly what you're going to do
storyboard.
ahead of time. I'm like,
You have to have a storyboard for
but
that, right?
something like that, it looks like maybe you were like, I'm going to make this. Oh, and now I have this great idea based off of what I've made. Is there?
Yes. So I have procedural tactics in which I typically adhere to. So like for this one, like I said, I mocked it up in Photoshop, and all that I did in my mock-up was that top-down view of the stairs, and then I took pictures of people in interesting poses, and that was my mock-up. Everything else I added as I went. So all that I had was the general structure and layout, and then as I painted it, it evolved in the same way that you said. In that I hadn't planned for the moon in the eye, I hadn't planned for this waterfall. It was more like I have this triangular section that needed to be filled, and if I didn't have an idea to fill it right away, I went off and did something else. And then
Come back to it.
Yes, and then oftentimes, like, I don't know if you can tell, but down here there's tiny people walking in this land.
Oh, wait. Oh,
Look,
yeah,
there's
there
little tiny people walking
There he
down here.
is.
So this is just like a whoa. And, my mom tells me that not everybody wants to get lost in a painting, Sari. But you're not my demographic. Right. But, so my process is very different. Like this one, for instance. I started this one with just this black swirl. And then down here, the hands were supposed to have ferns in them.
Wow.
And then I added the hands, and it just kind of morphed because I wasn't quite sure what I was doing with the black swirl, because initially, this is when the beginnings of our civil rights movement were going on right now. And I had just really quickly with my square brush put in the black, swish, swish, swish back and forth. And so some of the angles on the square brush were showing through, and I was like, those look kind of like picket signs, and it just kind of evolved. I wasn't quite sure this, so several different ways in which I work. So the one that I showed you 6 feet apart, I had it planned out. Whereas this one, oops, I'm so sorry. I hadn't had this planned out at all. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So, and then I was like, something needs to go in the middle. I was like, I like Celtic knots. Oh my gosh. And this twisted my brain into so many pretzels. It was insane. I was trying to paint this and I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot.
Does it go over? Does it go under?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like this whole thing to get that done. And I was just like, but it was great. And now I'm going to do more. This next commission that I'm working on has a whole bunch of Celtic knots. So I'm going to get really good at that.
I like that previous one you were showing. It's like the unity of race coming together, or like the intertwining of race, or I guess it's subjective. Like, I know as an artist, it's like you assign what it is, but then as a viewer of your art, other people then assign what they think it is, and it takes off. Sometimes there's like a colloquial meaning of your art, perhaps.
Yes.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah. So oftentimes I'll paint something and maybe I don't have a meaning assigned to it, or maybe I have several ideas, and then someone comes up to me and they're like, yo, I think this means this. Is that what it means? And I just look at them and I go, yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Here's what I thought while I was painting it, but I think you're right. That's actually what's going on. You're so right.
There could be multiple meanings.
This happens super often, and it even happened. There's a fella that I've been fangirling over his art, and when I got an opportunity to talk to him, he gave me a sticker. And it was a skull underground, and his name is Moksha, and he's a local Seattle artist, very, very cool. And he had like what looked to be like worms coming out of the eye sockets of the skull, and I told him that, and he goes, oh, I didn't paint them thinking they were worms. But you're right, they do look like worms. So it's kind of just a thing that happens.
Moksha.
Oh, he's so cool. He's so cool. Super nice. Wonderful art. Beautiful.
This stuff?
Moksha. That's
that's
not
it?
that's
Oh, no?
that's not him.
Oh, that's really weird.
Moksha. What about the third one in?
This one?
It's
I know what I could do.
It's Moksha.
And he's from Seattle?
Yeah, he's from Seattle.
Let's see. Hold on.
He's on the Instagram.
The fine.
Is it Moksha Markut? Yeah, that's it. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's got a Q and an M and a... Yes. Oh, yes. This is Moksha. Look at him. Beautiful artwork.
Wow.
So the one that I was talking about is... older, I think. He works with Third Eye Tapestries now, and I don't know if you've ever touched a Third Eye tapestry.
I haven't.
It is like jersey cotton and silk met each other, and it's just delightful. That's my favorite one, the one with the bear. It's called I Am Universe. Oh, so beautiful.
Wow.
Look at that. Local Seattle? Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, he's out in
It's like a galaxy in his body.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, I love it.
It's like that elicits so much feeling for me. That's one of those where I just saw it and I was just like, oh, come on. What did you do to me? I'm melting. Yeah. So very cool. Yeah, I love other artworks. I love other artists and stuff. And I think it's really important to network and actually talk to people about it. And
that must be like something that's really gratifying, is to go to art galleries where lots of artists show up and display their art, and then as an artist you can walk around and like you probably appreciate things from a creator perspective, but on top of that, then it's also like you can ask each other questions about like, what were you thinking when you did this and that. Yeah.
But even as a non-creator, you can do that too.
Sure.
Yeah. But yes, no, it's really nice because you, like I said, I was like fangirling over this person, and several artists here in Seattle I've actually gotten to do art shows with and actually live paint next to, and they're just people, you know. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can talk to him or whatever. And
I've put him on a pedestal.
Yeah, no, like I've grown out of that. You know, people are people. And I used to, like I said, I grew up in the woods. So like I had kind of a hard time talking to people. I don't know if you can tell now. I
cannot tell.
I used to have total social anxiety. I used to have panic attacks before every workshop I used to teach, but I did it. And now I don't struggle with that as much.
So what changed?
So practice and fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And really just trusting and knowing that this is your specialty, right? This is your craft. And giving yourself credit for the accomplishments and the things that you've done. And I think that self-reflection and reflection on your accomplishments is really important. And one of the ways in which I helped myself come out of my shell was I started to do art shows where if you talk to me about art, I probably won't shut up. So that's a perfect place for me to practice talking to people, is when people want to come and talk to you about your artwork, which you know a lot about and you know how to, how you feel about it. And they're asking you questions because they're curious about it. And it gives you a sense of confidence in yourself.
It helps you get over that feeling of imposter syndrome. Have you felt that? Like, I feel that in my work. Like, even though I've done something for like 10, 15 years and I feel like I'm an expert at it, it doesn't matter. Like, I always feel like I'm one step away from someone finding out, like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, even if it's not true, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I hate to say it, but I still do struggle with that. So I've taught over 3,030 people to paint in the last 4 years. I've taught many, 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 many workshops, and I'm about ready to launch this 6-week online painting workshop course. And I'm finding that those feelings are coming up for me, but I'm like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I might not be the most prolific painter in the world, but I definitely know what I'm doing, and I can teach people how to utilize the techniques that I use. And I might even add, I'm pretty great at addressing multiple learning styles. So the feedback that I have supports me doing this. The experience that I have supports me doing this. And sometimes it's just about getting your head out of your own ass and, excuse me, French, and just like, it's not about you. It's about your service, right? So, and a friend recently told me, because you with imposter syndrome, you get that, well, who am I to do this? But a friend recently told me, who are you to not do that? Ooh. Who are you to withhold that from the world?
Something that I remind myself is that we are our own worst critic, and no one is going to judge you as harshly as you probably are judging yourself. And I think that kind of helps take a little bit of the pressure off. I mean, like, even for this podcast, it's like things that maybe I will notice, other people won't. Like, things like that's the first thing I tell myself. But then, like, you had this laundry list of all these great things to remind yourself. And I think that it's just about keeping those in the forefront of your mind and not forgetting. And so something that I will do sometimes is I will like write it on a piece of paper or a board. Some people even have recommended like making it the background to your phone, like a lock screen, just putting affirmation, like things that just need to you just need to condition your mind to like remember that these things are true.
And the same goes for creativity.
Oh, it's just working out your like reinforcing the concepts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's trusting the process, right? Like making sure that you have that on a rainy day for if you're not feeling so hot about something. And you can go back to it and it's accessible and it's ready and you're not trying to dig it up when you need it because it's already there. So providing yourself with that tool to continue on. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And, a lot of that, what you said in the beginning of that was that you're your own worst critic.
Yeah.
And you're judging yourself way more harshly than other people are. And that's one of the main things that I try to communicate with people that I work with is, if
people that want to create their own art.
Yes.
It's like they don't even want to start because they're already
scared.
think it's going to be crap and they don't want to be embarrassed or ashamed of what they've created. I felt that actually.
Yeah.
I did a couple years ago, I did one of those like you drink wine and you draw class with my wife. And I think they help you, they get you to drink the wine so that you'll kind of let those feelings kind of dissipate a little bit. But
it's a inhibitor. It's a
reduce your inhibition.
Yes. Yeah. But so it's a helpful tool if you're not abusing it.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I mean, like, I do think that it's like you get this feeling like everyone else's painting is going to be good and mine's not going to be good. And then you're like, I don't want to do this. It's not fun. I feel the same way about bowling. Like, everyone's great at bowling around me, getting strikes. Like, and I'm like, gutter ball. I'm like, I hate this.
Put the barriers up and be proud of it. Bounce back and forth. You know what? The last time I went bowling, which was a long time ago, because I'm the same way, I was like, you know what? I want the barriers.
Oh, the bumpers.
The bumpers.
Yeah.
I want the bumpers. And they're like, really? Are you 5? Yes, I'm 5 today. Give me the bumpers.
I mean, I think bumpers are more fun. I don't know.
I try it. I try my best.
So what are bumpers for art though?
So bumpers for art is several things, right? So one of the best ways to release your inhibitions is to learn from somebody else. Have so take the decision-making power away from you and put it on whoever you're learning from. And this is really cool because then it allows you to trust the process. So they're telling me exactly what to do. I'm going to withhold my expectations about this. Also, every project you're working on, every piece of art you're working on, this is practice. This is an experiment. This is practice. This is an experiment. This is your mantra. This is practice. And then really just focusing on what it is you're doing and learning methods and procedures is the first step to getting rid of all that. I find that drawing for 10 minutes every day is really helpful to get your hand-eye coordination and getting your steadiness with your hands. But here's something really interesting on that note. When I don't draw, I can still paint. Paint is really forgiving. You layer it up and you build it up and you refine. And what I find is that when I do draw habitually, it just takes me less time to paint. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to have a better painting, which is really interesting, right? So
are you saying like when you sketch something out and then you paint over the drawing, or are you saying?
I'm saying if you take a sketchbook for 5-10 minutes a day and you just draw one thing a day, just draw one picture a day, whether it's crap or not. It helps with your hand-eye coordination.
Okay.
And so that way you're a little bit more dexterous and you can use your wrist and whatnot more easily while you're painting. But drawing skills aren't required for painting, which is a huge common misconception. All that you really need to know is what brush do I use, and not even that, but how do I put the paint on and in what order?
I see. It's like you shouldn't conflate that they're the similar.
Right.
There's more differences that make it more of like a unique skill set.
They benefit each other.
Yeah.
However, drawing skills aren't necessary for painting or creating anything, and and that's one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, is that you have to be able to draw in order to create a cool painting. So a lot of the paintings in which I do, I'm like, I could get so much faster at creating this painting if I only practiced my drawing more, because I can do one single stroke rather than 4. But as you do a stroke, it's like a guideline, and then you can kind of refine. You pull back, and you're like, oh, that's too wide. Okay, now I'm going to go in. I'm going to darken the edge.
So it sounds like it's more forgiving.
Yes,
Yeah.
paint is really forgiving. You layer it. But whereas a drawing, if you do like a line drawing, like if I were to draw you a picture right now, you'd be like, holy crap, this girl sucks.
Well, it's almost like, and I was just thinking about maybe like psychologically, the eraser represents a mistake. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, like the erase, when you flip the pencil over to erase something, you're like, you screwed up. That's the thought that a lot of people think. Whereas if you're painting and then you're refining with a different layer over it, and like, then it's like, it doesn't trigger the same negative response for me. Once I flip my pencil around to start erasing things, I'm like, I almost, you're right. Like I'm thinking like, you suck, you screwed this up. Like,
yeah.
I think those are the thoughts that maybe you have to like work through as a new artist, I guess.
You still get those with painting though.
Oh, okay.
So I like to share my process of painting because the beginnings of my paintings don't look that great sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I refine it.
Yeah.
You get your base layer and it's just like a weird gradient. Or then you like start to add in some details and you're like, all right, that's like super messy. What are you doing? But there are ways in which to apply the paint in a more precise way to get a different result. I don't know. I just like to show my process because paintings aren't pretty when you start them.
And I think the amateur thought process is the good artists just create works of magic immediately, and it's like 0 to 100 instantly, and there's no transition. And I think that maybe it's about the more you see an artist create something from start to finish, you start to see that, it's not perfect in the beginning, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for creating art in general, or writing a book, or like whatever.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
I do have a tip though, if you're struggling with feelings like that. Let's say you sat down and you did a painting or a drawing, and you've been working on it for like an hour, 2 hours, 3. Like your focus is on that painting and you're like constantly honing in closer and closer and closer. Take a break. Go take a walk. Go take a half an hour, maybe even overnight. Don't look at it. When you come back the next day, I guarantee you will like it more. Like
Well, I think there is something to be said for coming back to something, and maybe so I work in learning development, and something that we think about is the modes of your brain. There's active mode and oh shoot, I wrote this down. I actually wrote this down because I wanted to bring it up.
Oh goody. Teach me something.
What is it? The two.
Yeah, right. Like if you're frustrated and you're working on something, how are you going to make a good effort?
I always forget this word. It's there's two modes of thinking in your brain. There's focus mode and diffuse mode. And focus mode is like when you're intentionally trying to do something, and then diffuse mode is where your brain's trying to make sense of it when you're not trying to do it. And I think it's like taking a step away. Like if I'm in a creative rut and I go for a run, or sometimes I'll just go sit in the shower. I'll sit in the shower, go for a run, or I'm laying in bed at night right before bed. It's like, boom, there's my brain is like trying to like, you know what you could do, or you know what you should do, and you know what would work here. And where did that come from?
So
I think it's like sometimes taking a step away from your art can give you the ideas of, oh, maybe the moon should go there.
100%.
Right?
100%. And most of the creative process happens when you're not in the active mode of creating.
It's so wild. Like, where does that come from, though?
So I just think it's like when you're in tune, do you know what flow state is?
I mean, I've definitely felt it where I'm like so involved in something that I almost feel like I am one with it.
Right. And it's just flowing through you, and it's almost like it's just happening, and like the ideas keep coming, the good work is going, you're in the mode, you're in the zone. Oftentimes we can get reconnected with our own selves doing things like running, taking care of your body, that's good for your mind, meditating, yoga, all that stuff really just helps to align you with yourself, and then you're able to tap into creative outlets and problem solving modes. And you ever lose your keys, and while you're looking for them you can't find them, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you're doing something else and I know where that is. It's that constant thought of, I don't know where my keys are, that maybe keeps you from finding them, because you're just like, I don't know where they are. I don't know where they are. Okay, well, I'm not going to find them while I'm thinking I don't know where they are. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
It's kind of woo-woo.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Wow.
On the topic though of what is it? Diffuse mode.
Yes.
Well, one of the artists that you mentioned that was influential to you, Dali.
Oh, Salvador Dali.
Yes. So,
oh my God.
Well, it's interesting. From my understanding, he had this technique where he would sit in a chair with a key in his hand, and he'd let his brain wander freely until he fell asleep, and then the key would drop out of his hand, and the clang would wake him up, and he immediately start jotting down the thoughts he had as he was slipping into sleep, because I guess there's something magical about what your brain is doing. It's in diffuse mode, and so he'd wake himself up while he's in diffuse mode and write out his ideas.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And this is actually something that Thomas Edison also would do. He would do it with a fork. Apparently, there's I guess it's written somewhere that these are techniques that they use to get their ideas out. I'm as somebody who works in learning development, I'm fascinated with the focus mode, diffuse mode. How do I hack my brain to get the good thoughts out? You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a fabulous idea.
But you mentioned Salvador Dali was someone that is very influential to you. So I was just I think maybe an interesting question to talk about is some of the artists that have been most influential to you and why. Like what is it about him that you like so much?
I love that Salvador Dali takes what is our reality and he kind of blends it with a dream state. It's ethereal. It's seemingly nonsensical in ways. He's got that tall elephant on stilts. And his detail is amazing. I had the opportunity to go to the Tate Museum of Modern Art in London in December, and I saw a Salvador Dali painting in person, and it was 3 feet. No, it was like 2.5 feet by 2 feet. Okay, and the closer and closer I got, the more and more detail I got. I mean, this man was incessantly meticulous, and his the imagery and the symbolism that he uses is just so inspirational to me, and it just lights something inside of me. Another artist that I just really connect with is Vincent van Gogh. He has a motion, a movement, an emotive quality to which he applies his brushstrokes in a way that you can almost feel something, depending on how you're feeling. Looking at a painting can mean something different to you at different times. And I find that really interesting because, a lot of Vincent van Gogh's artwork, he'll use kind of some muddy colors, and he'll draw this chair, but the painting of this chair that he did with a pipe on it in a book. Like that was a symbolic of his friend. Him and his friend were estranged. Like they would sit and talk together every single day for 20 years. And all of a sudden they had an altercation and they weren't speaking anymore. And then he painted this painting. And it's just like, you look at this painting and you're like, it was kind of ugly, whatever. And then you like kind of look closer and you're like, there's something weird going on here.
It
like
kind of represents the drama in his life, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Once you know the backstory.
Oh man, if you know Van Gogh, he had a lot going on. You know, he was born. He was supposed to be
he
working
lost
in
his
an
ear?
art gallery. Yeah. Oh, he cut his ear
Cut
off.
his ear off.
He supposedly mailed it to a prostitute he was in love with, but that's not confirmed.
Huh.
Yeah.
I actually got to go to his museum last year in Amsterdam, and it was really interesting to see, like, as you walk through it, they have it sectioned off by, like, how old he was at the time, and, like, you can see the progression of his style change as he got older and different ways, and I thought it was pretty interesting, but I think the main thing about him that I always think about is the ear thing. It's it's like, who cuts off your ear?
Why'd you cut your ear off?
What the heck? It's you and Mike Tyson.
Well, supposedly there's a theory that he had lead poisoning, and that's kind of what
I've heard that
caused the psychosis, right? Because back in the day, you know, the paint would have lead in it, and I always tell people don't drink the paint water, but I don't think people really realize how. No, I don't think our paint has lead in it any longer, but you know, I think he just wasn't appreciated in his time, and paired with possibility of lead poisoning, because like sometimes you accidentally like get paint in your mouth. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, what do you mean accident? Oh, you lick the brush?
No, like you accidentally like drink paint water. Like there's a reason why I tell people not to drink the paint water in my workshops, because if I have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or a water, and then I have my paint water and you accidentally grab the wrong cup and you're just like, oh, oops.
The funny thing is, in California, they are both labeled to be carcinogenic, the coffee and the paint water.
Oh, right. Same diff. You know. I feel like having some red ochre today. Maybe some titanium white is kind of my taste buds today.
But you probably don't want lead.
No.
So deviating to a different question, something that I saw that you had said to me is that there was a point in your life where you couldn't create art for about 2 years. So what was going on in your life then, and what caused that to happen? And maybe like what helped you snap out of it? Like,
so I had to be very specific about taking actions to get out of it. It was really painful for me. I've been an artist my entire life. There was a lot of things going on with my personal life, and it wasn't healthy. And so, without disclosing any more than that, like, let's just say it was not a hard time. It was not a healthy time. And I think that everybody is going to encounter this at one point or another. And when so generally speaking, you know, I was trying to fall in line with a prescribed lifestyle, a prescribed, you know, set of rules. It felt foreign to me, and I got disconnected from what it was I really wanted, because I was trying to be this thing that other people wanted me to be. And I think that everybody faces that in one form or another. And that's the point where you get kind of disconnected and you start to struggle emotionally.
Does it like put like a pressure on you to be like what you think other people want you to be, and versus what you feel like you want to be?
Yeah, I'm a triangle going in a square hole and it's not working, you know, it just doesn't fit or whatever. Yeah, so there's a pressure to be this thing that you're not, right? So some families want you to be a doctor, and maybe you want to be a athlete, you know, some families want you to be an artist, or, you know, you have... Yeah, like say I almost went to school for accounting, but I actually like numbers. I was actually really interested in that, but I was like, no. I just, you know, that's a job. That's a job. I want a passion.
It's interesting you mentioned math, because so I was watching, in preparation for this interview, I was researching about creativity, and I came across there's a very popular belief that schools somehow inhibit creativity, like the public school system. and I was watching this TED talk on it and reading the comments, and somebody made this interesting comment about math. I guess it was like a math professor, so like related to being an accountant. He said, it disappoints me to see so many people here in the comments treat math as being a non-creative activity. Personally, I think math is intensely creative. The problem is that any subject can be uncreative if it's taught in a way that discourages creativity, and that rote memorization of like multiplication tables, it's not creative. But if like if music teachers give their students no choice of what notes to play or how to play them, is music really a subject that enhances creativity? The focus should be not on trying to build the curriculum so that students spend more time on subjects that we deem to be creative or artsy, but rather on building the curriculum to make sure that it cultivates creative thoughts of all kinds, regardless of what the subjects are being studied. And I thought that was really insightful.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you mean like it's not so much the subject matter, but more so the way we go about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
often we're taught what to think, not how to think.
That's like American education.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
You
right?
should think this way, not here are the questions you should ask.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
I wonder
Yeah.
if we're moving away from that though.
So back to the question.
Sorry.
Is that what you? Or how did I unstop my creativity?
Yes,
Is that
yes,
what you're? Is
yes.
that what you're wanting to redirect back to?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, painful. Sit in this box, whatever. And then ultimately, it came to a point to where like I would sit in front of a blank canvas and like nothing would happen. I wasn't able to draw. I was just like, you feel this sense of defeated, like I'm not supposed to be what I'm supposed to be, etc. Just folding in on yourself in collapsing kind of way. And I think that everybody will face an experience like that to some degree. Oftentimes it's incurring from external sources. Sometimes it can incur from internal. So whatever that might be or look like for yourself, just a painful experience, right? So then I was avoiding in a way the whole thing that I loved. And so sometimes I would show up for myself and sometimes I wouldn't. And then, anytime anything would happen on the paper or the canvas or whatever I was doing, it just wasn't good enough. Judge. So I was talking to somebody who was a mentor in a way. They were actually on a podcast, right? So I called in and I was like, I'm having this problem, like whatever. And they're like, yo, just show up at your canvas and set a timer for 20 minutes and show up. And if you don't have to do anything, just sit there and look at it. And, I did
just
that.
Like carve out the time.
You have to carve out the time.
For the possibility of something to happen.
Yeah. So you have to show up for yourself first and foremost. So I would show up and then nothing would happen. And then all of a sudden, a week or 2 or 3 went by. I don't remember now. It was a while ago. It was a long time. It felt like that I would be showing up and nothing would occur to me or happen. And, then things started to stir inside and start to wake up, and I was able to kind of tap into that. But there's tricks, right? So psychological tricks. You can show up for yourself, carve out the time. You can tell yourself, all I have to do is show up for 5 minutes. That's all I have to do. I don't have to make anything good. Just 5 minutes, just draw whatever's in front of you. And
this
then
is like the foot in the door technique for yourself. It's like just 5 minutes, and then you start, and you're like, how about 10?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden that lion just starts to wake up and starts like, and even now, like you were saying, imposter syndrome can be one of the big things. Like, who am I to do this? The stories that you tell yourself, how you treat yourself is really, really imperative. Be gentle with yourself. You don't have to do anything amazing. Just show up and do something. There's a really good book. If somebody's really interested in this, I highly recommend it. This is one of the major things that got me out of my creative rut. There's a book, it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And it's a 12-week course. It's under a little bit of scrutiny from agnostic and atheist individuals because she focuses on a creativity as a God source. But if you can table that whole concept of what she calls God or the universe funneling through you for creativity, if you're able to just put that off to the side and take her weigh it against your heart and discard what you don't like, right? But the book itself has great tactics for showing up for yourself, for practicing. One thing that she teaches is every single day show up to a journal and write in a journal for 3 pages every single day, and that'll help get things unclogged. And then another thing she says that's really cool is take yourself on what she calls an artist date once a week. And this is where you just go out and you do something that inspires you. So for me, what this looks like is I'll take a bike ride and I'll explore some things, and I'll stop and take photos of things that I really like, or I'll go take a walk, or I'll go take a hike. Sometimes it's taking a workshop. Sometimes it's going to a art gallery, or whatever your creative outlet is. Go and look at what other people are doing and find something that stirs something in you.
I really like that artist. I need to take myself on an artist date.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like an hour. Just an hour. Just
like
do
that.
something for yourself once a week.
Yeah.
And so she's got lots of, it's like the book is jam-packed of really awesome activities. But again, like I said, there is that element that a lot of people shy away from. But if you can just say, I'm taking that with a grain of salt, if it doesn't agree with you, the content in the book is really powerful. And it's really helped a lot of people.
Great. Well, if you're out there and you're struggling to get started, get that book. Also, sign up for one of Sari's webinars for sure.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned that there are these tricks, these psychological tricks, and so we covered forcing yourself to start. That's a good one, or the foot in the door technique of like just give yourself a little bit of time. I also noticed that some people, I don't think this is different than what you're saying, but some people were saying to get new input, like expose yourself to the opinions of others or media that's around like what you're trying to do. Try new things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes just having different experiences you haven't had can help you see what you're trying to do from like a different perspective, I guess. And of course, dreaming and waking yourself up intentionally with a fork.
I love that. Yeah, I have another psychological trick. It's really mean.
Okay.
I do it to myself all the time.
Oh, let's hear it.
So if there's something that I have been really wanting to do, and perhaps I'm continuously avoiding it, or I know I'm going to have avoidant behavior around it, I will make a commitment to somebody else to show up and do something. So,
like an accountability partner?
Yeah, a little bit. Or I just tie it in with my business, right? So, for example, that book, The Artist's Way, I was like, okay, I want to read through this entire book. I want to do this workbook. And I was like, oh man, I kind of fell off the wagon halfway through it last time. I go, well, what can I do to make sure that I show up? I go, I'm going to do a weekly YouTube group. So I got through the entire book with several people following along and doing the workbook with me. So I was accountable to these people.
And vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. So make yourself accountable, an accountability buddy, if you will. And that's really helpful. Another psychological trick that I've done to myself is I will accept a project with a deadline. Oh my God. So I did an art installation in February 8th, I believe, of this year. I did an art installation. It's actually on that page that on my blog that we had pulled up. And so I committed to do this giant 7-foot by 4.5-foot mural and to decorate. Oh yeah. And to decorate this entire room. And I did that all in a month. And this was my biggest art installation I've ever done. That's not necessarily my biggest painting. I've done murals, but I handmade that canvas. I bought a canvas roll and some curtain rods, and I hand sewed that all on there. And then I made stencils and I spray painted, and that's a UV reactive painting. It looks different in the UV and normal. And then I handmade all those clouds, and
wow.
this was for waves Waves events.
So what is Waves for people out there? I've never heard of that.
So Waves is a local event company. I've been volunteering with them for like the last 2 years. But what we do is we put on quarterly productions where basically it's a party, and it's local music producers and local artists, and it's themed. Every event is themed. So it's like Halloween 4 times a year. It's wonderful. Hannah and Jackson put this on. It's Hannah's company. Obviously, we're not doing any productions right now, but all local Seattle people, really amazing people who put their heart and soul into this. The whole entire production team, the lighting, the visuals, everything. So I had an entire room. And so Waves is just this really cool, like Hannah's super creative. She's their creative director and the whole brains behind the operation. So I committed to do this. And
this looks like a room I'd like to just sit in and just like hang out in for a while. And
it was
just,
a
like,
chill room.
Get lost in it.
Yeah, it was so cool. I have videos of people walking in it, and that's one of those things where it's just like, oh my God, like. And if you scroll down, there's kind of, you can see my process for making this. But so I took, all the way down. I take on projects and I set deadlines for myself. And what's going on?
I don't know.
It's all wonky there.
There we go.
So you can see that paper right there. That's my sketch of the room. Right there. That was my mock-up design with my notes. So a little bit like, look at that drawing. Isn't that just perfect? Don't you think that I'm an amazing painter from looking at that drawing?
It's like what's that? There's a meme on the internet that's like how to draw an owl. Step 1, draw the eyes, and then it's like step 2, draw the rest of the fucking owl. And then it's like it's just like eyes, and then it's just like the owl. Like,
so good.
Wait a second. Is there? Yeah, here it is. Yeah. It's like this. This is why people are deterred from wanting to create art. Like, draw 2 circles. Step 2, draw the rest of the damn owl.
Oh my God. Is that what I just did to you? That's so good.
Well, it's like, so I mean, I did this and then boom.
No, but if you scroll down, there's more pictures.
No, I mean, I know. But I think that's probably a fear of like a lot of people who are new to art.
What's
they're
in the
just
middle?
Like, they're like, how do you get there?
What's in the middle? What's my process?
Yeah.
It's me sewing the canvas. Look at that thing.
What is that?
That is a face mask.
But why?
Because spray paint is
spray
toxic.
Paint. Okay.
So that's the mural, the canvas empty behind me. That was in my art studio. And behind me in the left-hand side, you can see my reference photos for this painting.
Oh, cool.
Like tons of reference photos.
Okay.
It's my paint. That's me. That's my base. So here's how to draw the owl right here. Look at this. So I'm freehanding at this point.
Wow.
Freehanding. Okay, so now up is without the black light, and then down is the same image with the black light. So I constantly turning the black light off and on as I go.
To see how it affects it.
Mm-hmm. And then I used electrical tape here to mask out some geometry that I wanted to.
To give it more contrast.
Yeah, well, because look at my grid. It's just not cool. So I was like, I need to do something better with this grid. This isn't working. There's my masking tape in the shape of a heart. Because it's art. Keep art in your heart, my friend Kim says. This is a sheep stencil. I decided that I'm going to work with some stencils since I'm spray painting. It might be a good idea. So I hand cut 3 stencils for each image of the sheep. I think that's a Van Gogh quote or something on my...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not paint water that you don't want to
drink.
drink.
It's not as tea. It's actual tea.
Okay.
There is some more layers. And see, you're right. There's some more contrast. And here's my sheep. Oh, man. Sheep come in. They're in this circle. So the sheep are like on the ground, and they're also leaping up into the sky and turning into clouds.
Oh, cool.
All right.
I like it.
Thank you. Yeah. So it was super fun. And I had a bunch of people from Waves. I had about 10 volunteers over the course of 2 days helping me hand sew the clouds. There they are. There's Maya. There they are. I called them Sari's Sweatshop.
Yeah, look at it.
Look at them working away.
So how do you make a cloud? It's cotton and...
So we took a polyfill batting and then chicken wire and then fishing line with upholstery needles to sew it on. And everyone's like, am I doing this right? And I go, yeah, it's good. They're like, wow, you're such an easy teacher. And this is all of us here at Waves. This is our last event, all of us, everybody involved in the production.
Where was this?
This was in close to Westlake, Seattle.
Okay.
We rented a building. I believe it was Beyond something. These are people enjoying it. Aw, look at them.
Memories, huh?
So good. It was so wonderful.
That's
I
awesome.
was high on that for weeks. Oh man, I got so depressed after that because I wasn't like, you're riding that high and then all of
I
a sudden
know.
the serotonin levels dip down. I was like, oh yeah, this is just the post production
Yeah. And
lull.
then
It's okay.
you want to get back there, and you're like, what's my next thing?
It's always about the next thing.
The
And
next thing.
I always get this advice where it's like, slow down, appreciate your accomplishments. But I'm like, what's next? I got to make something new.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah. But it's good. It's good to feel motivation, though. It's good to feel that you want to create something new.
I feel so blessed, that I'm able to, I did work hard to network and get where I am, but I still feel really blessed. Like it's kind of surreal sometimes, the things that I get to do. It's, and I choose to do it. It's active. So it's not always easy. If you knew how many times I told myself that I hated painting and would never paint again, you're like, why do you have a business around painting? What's wrong with you?
Because you found ways to deal with the issues, and
Right.
still ultimately you have like a strong passion for it,
Yeah.
regardless of those issues.
If it's not a challenge, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you growing? Probably not.
Or if it was really easy, I think maybe you wouldn't be as like, if I don't know, like I think everything in life has its challenges.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, but that's where the growth comes from, right? You think of it, so creativity is like a muscle. So just like with a muscle, you're not going to gain more muscle and bulk up unless you stretch your muscle past that point where you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is with creativity, right? The same is with anything, learning, all of that. Yeah. So yes, be gentle with yourself, but also be a hard ass.
So you say creativity is a muscle, and that it sounds like something that you can get better at. But then there's also this conflicting messaging out in our world where we're kind of taught from a young age that some people are just more creative than others, maybe like genetically. I don't know.
That's such a lie.
What are your thoughts on that topic? I mean, like, maybe the bigger question there is like, what makes certain people more creative than others in your opinion?
Work.
So it's you don't think there's a genetic I mean,
I
I think everyone's brains are different in the sense that like maybe you look at something and I look at something and we might see different things, but it doesn't mean that I can't work and put in practice to somehow make something just like you could.
Right.
I guess.
Right. So innovation. So I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit, but I'm addressing your question.
Sure. Go
So
ahead.
so innovation is needing to solve a problem, and creativity, the definition is connecting things that might not really go together, but you're finding a connection and making them connect, right? And so just skip over my innovation comment. So creativity is really being able to connect two things that maybe won't commonly go together, but you find a way to meld them, and then suddenly you make something new, right? So if you look up the definition of creativity, you're going to find a bunch of different answers. So psychologically speaking, there's a different definition, all that. But so
It's not pineapple pizza.
I love, right?
Well, it's taking two things and trying to make something new.
But
in one way? That's
but
one
that's
definition.
a skill.
Yeah.
But that's a skill, right?
Yeah.
So when I first started doing packaging design, I worked for like a tool company and I did packaging. At the beginning of when I started, you could tell that something just wasn't quite right, or maybe it took me a lot longer. But then after 5 years of working there, I would very quickly throw this package design together. So in just 5 years of doing the same thing over and over, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't take 5 years. It's just how long I worked there. So let's say, in probably a month or 6 months alone, I saw drastic increases in productivity and speed. And all that it is you're connecting, now let's see, scientific terms. I don't know. Let's just say you have a couple synapses firing in your brain and you're just creating a closer bridge, right? So So you can exercise a skill set to gain, or you can exercise a task to gain a skill set, right? So if you repetitively do something, it gets easier and quicker each time, right?
I think so.
In a basic sense.
Yes.
Right? So the more complex that the task is, the harder it is, obviously. But let's say you're throwing a basketball through a hoop, right? Like you just don't know how to do that. You have to practice to do that, and you can get better at it. Now, your comment about people being genetically more creative than others, perhaps somebody is more inclined to do something, but that doesn't mean that you're barred from doing it just because you're not.
This is kind of like fixed mindset, growth mindset kind of philosophy. Like some people are taught at a young age that like some people are like this, some people are like that, and you fall into a category and that's who you are.
You're a
And
pineapple pizza.
yeah, and then some people are taught like, you can be whatever you want. Failure is key to gain the experience and to practice over and over again, and you're going to incrementally get better at something. Right. And it's just whether or not you think you're born a certain way, or you have to mold yourself into
Correct.
being a certain way. And it's like a mindset.
Right. And additionally, let's say you take somebody that has a natural talent for something and they don't practice it. They're not going to increase their skills. They're going to stay the same. But you have somebody that's not naturally inclined to do something. So let's say the naturally inclined guy's up here, and this is me learning how to do it. So I'm practicing, getting better. This guy's just like, oh man, I can just show up and do it and it's fine. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden this other person surpassed that person. So, it's about what you put into it, right? Like you can still be good at something naturally and just have it be plug and go.
Yeah. But perseverance and practice, I think, wins out every time.
Right. Yeah, like you're not doing yourself a favor by not working on your craft.
Maybe some people, though, they see it as a deterrent that, like, if I'm not naturally good at something, that why even, like, it's going to be an uphill battle, like a salmon swimming upstream, and I should just, like, play to my strengths kind of thing. But I mean, like, I don't know. What's the fun in that? I feel like if you're actually interested in something, even if it's going to be hard to get started, like, I think if you're interested in it, you should go for it. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be in 1 year, 10 year, 5 years. I have an idea of where I want to go, but am I going to put the work in? Am I going to actually get there? And also, releasing that, that fear of failure, right? Because what is it? Edison said, I didn't learn 99 ways to not make a light bulb. I didn't make 99 failures. I had 99 ways that I figured out not to make a light bulb, something, whatever it is he said. But releasing that requirement for something to be good, right? Good enough. Just making it about play, and that will help you psychologically to continue to show up. And it's just about taking that action. It's not about the result. It's about quantity, not quality.
Yeah. The quote, here it is. I found it. It says,
"Oh, good.
I just found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. I only needed to find one way to make it work."
Exactly. So how many iterations of a process are you going to go through before you find the one that actually works best, right? Yeah. So it could be kind of a half failure. It could be, okay, well, this parts of this work, this parts of it don't. I often will experiment with painting and completely and I don't recommend doing this, but sometimes I'll just start a canvas where I'm teaching a workshop, and then I bring the canvas home and I'm like, all right, well, how could I make this better? And then sometimes it turns into just a big experiment, and I'm like, all right, so I got something out of my experiment, so I'm going to tone over this canvas and just reuse it for something else, which I don't really recommend going over your work, because it's really fun to look back on your work and see how far. Yes. So recently I had about 9 months worth of painting photos that I had to go in and edit so I could put on my website. And it was really fun to me to look at them all together compared with all the other work that I had from like the 1 to 2 years prior because I'd progressed so much. And so it's really cool to go back and look at what you've done before next to what you're doing now. So if you can, keep those things. But again, do as I say, not as I do. No.
Yeah, I mean,
I keep a lot of them, but
it seems like a lot of artists, they just like put it in context and say like, this was the year for this, and this was the year for these pieces, and
Yeah.
you can see like, oh, in this year, this is the style of art that they were into, and then I do think it's very interesting, and it'd be kind of sad to lose that, yeah,
yeah.
lose your history.
Yeah, like just because I did a painting 3 years ago and I've improved a method or a way of doing something, or maybe I'm working with a completely different color palette, it doesn't make that art like, I don't regret making the art. I don't regret keeping it. It's fun. Like I have art from high school and, like sketchbooks and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible. I love it.
You just gotta own it.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, this is where I was. Like, you don't have to be anything. You don't have to, there's so many different types of artists out there. Like, and the big thing is you can look at a piece of art and you can say, I did that, or I could do that. And then you could look at another piece of art and say, I could never do that. Well, what's the difference between the artist that's creating the art and you? Is that they're showing up and making it, right? So
Execution.
yeah, it's about showing up. So like sometimes I'll look at a piece of art and I'm just like, oh God, I could totally do that. Or even, like 10 years ago, I'd look at something and be like, I could do that. How are they successful and I'm not? Well, because they're showing up and they're doing it. That's why.
Yeah.
They're
It's like my dad would always say, 90% of success is just showing up.
right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
To get the 90% of getting, he said 90% of getting the job is just showing up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
You could probably apply that to most things. It's
Yeah.
just,
You can apply to a
just
job
trying.
online, but if you show up and you call them and you say, hey, I'm just doing a follow up. I'm really interested in this job. They know you want it.
They're like, why are you at my house?
No, don't go to their house. Excuse me. I found you on Facebook and
Right.
LinkedIn, and then
Yeah.
I found a photo of you on Google Maps. I zoomed in on your house and I knew.
So on the topic of creativity, and so we're saying that perseverance and practice is what's most important, and if you want to work on being creative, just trying. There was this really interesting article I came across about how creative people physically see and process the world differently, and I thought it might be interesting to read
Yes,
read a little bit of
please.
it to you, to maybe have a discussion around it. Could I
I
mention
would
it to you?
love that.
So
That sounds super interesting.
so this says, it's probably will only take a minute, but it says, if you're the kind of person who relishes adventure, you may literally see the world differently. People who are open to new experiences can take in more visual information than other people and combine it in unique ways, and this might explain why they tend to be particularly creative. Openness to experience is one of the big 5 traits often used to describe personality, and it is characterized by curiosity, creativity, and an interest in exploring new things. Open people tend to do well at tasks that test our ability to come up with creative ideas, such as imagining new uses for everyday objects like bricks, mugs, or table tennis balls. There's some evidence that people with a greater degree of openness also have better visual awareness. For example, when focusing on letters moving on a screen, they are more likely to notice a gray square appearing elsewhere on the display. A researcher at the University of Melbourne in Australia and her team are showing that people who score more highly when it comes to the openness trait see more possibilities, and they seem to have a more flexible gait for the visual information that breaks through into their consciousness. The researchers asked 123 university students to complete a binocular rivalry test in which they simultaneously saw a red image with one eye and a green image with the other eye for 2 minutes. Usually the brain can only perceive one image at a time, and most participants reported seeing the image flip between the red and the green. But some subjects saw the 2 images fused into a patchwork of red and green, a phenomenon known as mixed percept. And the higher the participants scored for openness on a personality questionnaire, the more they experience this mixed perception.
What?
Interesting, right?
I love it.
And it says, when you present open people with the binocular rivalry dilemma, the brains are able to flexibly engage with less conventional solutions. We believe this is the first empirical evidence that they have different visual experience to the average individual. Let's see. The results could explain why people with a high degree of openness tend to be more creative and innovative. When they come up with all these crazy new uses for bricks, it might be because they really perceive the world differently. Let's see.
Like an engineer.
There are similarities between high levels of openness and the experience of taking magic mushrooms. Previously, her team found that psilocybin, hallucinogenic compound of magic mushrooms, increases a person's openness scores in personality questionnaire and their experience of mixed percept and binocular rivalry tests. The researchers want to see if similar neural processes are involved in mixed perception, creative thinking, and the shifts of visual perception caused by psilocybin and meditation. It seems like that the openness alters the filters of consciousness, and we're discovering how. So it sounds like being like open as a person, however you get there, whether it's through a substance or meditation or just working on yourself in your personal life to be open to new experiences, that somehow alters the way that you see everything and what you're able to create and how you see the world. It's just
the power of the mind.
It's so weird.
So cool. So I have
Sorry for the long
No,
read,
I love it.
I just thought that would be fun to share.
That's
like,
super interesting. On that same note,
I'm going to link that. Link to this article in the live stream for anyone who wants to read. But yeah, go ahead.
So as you were talking about openness, and as you remember when I was talking about the book, The Artist's Way, I said be open-minded, discard what you don't need, etc. That really supports that. But I also have another example of how this supports, well, I don't know if this really supports the creativity aspect of it. Maybe if you think of math as creative. But when I was in a trig class in high school, like maybe there's a concept that presents to you that doesn't make sense and you're trying to understand the why of it instead of focusing on, this is what I did, was I focused on the actual procedure of how to solve the problem, even when I didn't understand what the concept meant. And sometimes our understanding of a situation can come to us after we've taken the actual act. So the process of completing the trig problem led me to the understanding of what it actually meant. And a lot of times I think we can go kicking and screaming down a road that takes us through a process that leads us to understand something. And we'll go kicking and screaming down there because we want to understand it first.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if that really directly ties into it, but that popped into my brain.
I think yes, it does, in the sense that being open to having the experience and delaying the gratification of having immediate understanding.
Right.
Like if you can delay that and be like, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to accept that I don't know, and I'm going to go through this educational process with the hope that when I get to the end, all things will make sense.
Right.
And isn't that just kind of like,
because
that's how I approach death. That's how I approach this life. It's like, I have no idea if anything happens after this. I have no idea. I'm just going to go through the process of life.
We all have to go.
Right. It's kind of similar in the sense, you can't control. You don't always get to know everything ahead of time.
Right.
And it's like accepting.
Sometimes we understand after.
Yeah. And so maybe accepting that and going through the process allows you to be open to new experiences.
Right. Which is why it's really helpful to take a workshop, because you alleviate that I have to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because it's the teacher's responsibility of showing you procedures and steps to get to the end result. And then at the end, you're going to understand a little bit more. So it's taking that action that teaches us rather than knowing before we start.
So there is a type of school that I never had experience with when I was a kid, but I have some friends of mine they have their children into what's called
Oh,
Montessori.
Montessori schools.
Yeah, and they were saying that like the premise of a Montessori school is kind of like what we're talking about. Like instead of teaching kids what to think, they kind of show them like the process, and they like develop their own interests through different process. Or I don't know. It's very
Ah,
similar, I guess, but I
yeah.
don't know much about it. But
That's super
anyway,
cool. Where does your curiosity take you? Let's follow that. And then that can then get through whatever inhibitions you have and open your mind, and then you're going to be able to like you mentioned meditation as well as the psilocybin that opens your mind. And I think that's really interesting because connecting with yourself is one of the things that I said is really important with the creativity and being able to have it flow. And meditation is really nice because it calms your mind and you get into, what was it, the diffuse state?
diffuse mode.
The diffuse mode.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I've had realizations about what I'm doing with a painting in the meditative state. Like there was a painting that I had started and my skills weren't quite there to finish it for the thought that I had. And then it sat in the closet for 3 years. Literally, it sat there for 3 years. And one day I was meditating and all of a sudden I got out of the meditation. I was like, I'm going to finish this painting. And I finished it and it's just beautiful. It's one of my favorite paintings. And
So what was it about the meditation that triggered the inspiration to finish it?
I don't know. I just got a vision.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw something. And of course, like you can have a visual concept about something that you want to do, but then, like you said, it does morph over time as you execute it. But I don't know. I just think it was just that release of you get into that state where you're not thinking about anything, and then it just really, I don't know exactly what.
It's almost like
Why?
something you connect to something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like you're maybe it's like by not consciously trying to think about something, you're allowing your brain to manifest what it needs to manifest, and you've created the space for it.
Yes, you create the space for something.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you have to create, with creativity, you have to have that time where you're not just trying to hammer away on something like, okay, I have to think about this, which is a good exercise, but that blank space, just look at this white table. If you stare at this white table for long enough, like, you're going to get an idea about something.
It makes me think of the room that Neo and Morpheus go to when he first is brought into the Matrix. And
Yeah.
It's just a white room, and he's like, where am I?
Yes.
And he's like, do you want to see?
Oh my
Just like a
God,
white-
yes. And then he gets plugged into the kung fu. Like we've got the martial arts that he gets to just learn instantaneously.
Yeah. I wish I could learn how to paint like that. That'd be
Instantaneously. I got a chip. I'm developing it. I'm going to have it out next year.
great. Put
You
an
just
SD card in right here.
Yeah, so have you seen Altered Carbon? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just put that in there.
Uh-huh.
We'll put you in the cloud.
Mm-hmm. But that goes into like wanting to know ahead of time and not being okay with like you just have to learn through the practice and the process of it and accepting that, coming to terms with that. But,
Yeah.
Okay, so like before we end, I think it's important to just like after everything that we've said, how can we leave the listeners, the viewers out there with, okay, I've heard everything you've had to say. I want to be more creative. I want to take action in my own life to start making things. What kind of advice would you want to leave that person with?
Well, there's wonderful resources out there. I would definitely want to just take a workshop, just take a class. Mm-hmm. And if there's something that you want to do right now, just grab a piece of paper and draw whatever you see. Draw your bedroom. Draw a mug. Take a workshop. Just go take a walk, take a breather, create some space for yourself. Make sure you're taking time out to have nothing going on. We're in society where it's just go, go, go. We have deadlines
One
and
thing
stuff.
after another.
Yeah, it's like what's next? And it's like you got to take a minute, 5 minutes, right? That's what I said. Just take 5 minutes and show up and do a little bit of research about whatever your creative endeavor is. If maybe you want to do some music producing, go to YouTube and say, how do I, make music? Or
Yeah.
if you want to paint, go to YouTube. How do I paint?
Or take a free webinar.
Take a free webinar. Oh, yes. You know what? You were leading me there, weren't you?
I mean,
you hand-fed me that.
I was going to plug it at the end.
I have this webinar coming up. It's completely free. I'm going to get you some tasks you can do with whatever you have on hand. You don't have to have anything special. Just come to the webinar. We're going to talk about some ways to open up your creativity. I've done a lot of research. Like I said, I've done some workshops over the last 4 years. I've been teaching painting, and I teach creative painting workshops. And the differentiation there is that I teach you some tricks on how to make some compositions, how to get creative, and it's going to be really good, you guys. You aren't going to want to miss this. This is free. I don't teach people for free. I charge money. So this is an opportunity for you to come in and get some really wonderful ways in which you can tap in. It's going to be chock full of fun stuff.
And so it's on November 11th at 7:30 p.m. And so how would somebody attend the actual webinars? They would just go to this page, or?
Yeah, so I'm working out the kinks in my technical stuff right now. But yeah, so this page, I'm going to embed the video stream.
Perfect.
And you can stream it on here. And also, if you go to my website and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a box where you can type your email in, and it says stay in the know or stay in touch. And you type your email in there. I'll send out little reminders for you to let you know what I have going on and when the webinar is going to go live. I don't send out a lot of emails, but when I do, it has lots of really cool art and information and fun events that I do.
Awesome. Well, yeah, make sure to sign up for that. This is a great opportunity.
You don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Free.
So on the topic of being more creative, a few ideas that I saw just browsing Reddit. One person said that you should aim to create 100 bad ideas.
Yes, that's a wonderful goal.
Maybe it's like, because then you take the pressure off. You just brainstorm and be like, oh, that's a bad idea. Well, that's what I was going for anyway, so it's
right.
okay.
Instead of practice, instead of an experiment, I'm just out for all the bad stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Give me this terrible drawing. I'm here. I got this. This is my goal.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like that idea. And then another one I heard that kind of resonated with me is to not show anyone until you're done. And
yes.
I kind of like that, because I've made things in the past, or like I've worked on something in the past where, like, if I involve somebody too early, I feel like if they like said anything negative, it deterred me from wanting to finish it. You know what I mean? Or it also kind of maybe can alter your choices as an artist, or maybe like, I don't know, or maybe it can like take away your motivation to want to complete it somehow.
Yeah, and more importantly, when you are sharing your artwork, especially when you're new, you need to find somebody that is going to be, nurturing and constructive. You don't want to just show anybody your brand new artwork, right? And maybe pick one person, that you can share things with, that not only encourages you, but gives you positive, constructive ideas on how you can improve. Mm-hmm. So getting involved with people like that. And if you are looking for something like that, I do have a Facebook group. It's called Creative Club with Sari Luna. And we just have people go on there and post their artwork. And if they're wanting feedback, it's a growing community. And we talk about, we share art that we like, that we've seen other people do, and we share art that we are doing ourselves. And people get an opportunity to look at that, and people are really nice and really kind. So that's a really nice starting place for you to get involved in a place like that.
We can link that in the comments below.
Perfect.
Too.
Yeah.
I think that another thing that I'm thinking about is if you can get yourself to be in a competition with yourself and not with a competition with other people. Like I remember when I took that art class with my wife where we were drinking the wine and we were painting pumpkins. It was like
I
exactly
saw
a year
your pictures
ago.
in the window.
Oh, that's
They're so cute.
okay. Well, you have to try to guess which one's mine. It's probably the worst one. But see, that's
Stop
that's
that.
the mentality I'm trying to address. Is like I think that in that class, I remember painting it and then like kind of peeking at everyone else's pumpkins and being like, oh man, like mine is. It's not bad. It's just different. Like, and I'd look at how it was compared to the instructor, and then thinking like, I think that's almost a toxic mentality that we have to work on personally. Is like you should always be trying to improve based on your previous self and not trying to improve based on everyone else around you. I think that's a good philosophy for life in general. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that maybe that is a way to help with creativity,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, I catch myself doing the same thing where I'm like, oh, I feel like I have to keep up with all these people, but it's like I'm on my own path. I'm doing my own thing.
Right.
Like I'll see people doing, this really cool art in this one genre and this really cool art in this other genre. And it's like maybe I enjoy that art and I can incorporate like interesting things that are inspiring into my own art and make something new all my own. But yeah, that's one major thing is I do encourage people to get up and walk around and look at each other's paintings, but I also encourage them to be like, okay, when you take this painting home, you're not going to see the instructor's painting. You're not going to see other people's painting. They're just going to see yours. And there's no wrong way to paint. Contrary to popular belief, there are cool techniques that you can learn, but if you want to paint with a paper towel and that's your paintbrush, do it. Whatever. You're going to get a different effect than somebody else, and that's your art. That came out of you, and comparison is the death of creativity.
yes.
It truly is. And like you said, you really just are wanting to strive to increase your skill set, not be somebody else, because you don't want to be anybody else anyway, right?
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, Sari, thank you for being on the show. I want to give you the last word. Is there any final things that you would like to say to our viewers before we end this live stream?
Yeah, just don't be scared. And, a lot of us are like so scared to show up. And even me, the longer amount of time that I have in between my creative sessions, the more that I'm afraid to show up. And I have been an artist my entire life. I paint all the time. And if I go more than 2-3 days without painting, all of a sudden I am having avoidant behavior. Oh, I don't want to show up. Oh, it's been a minute. I'm not warmed up. So if you can show up for yourself 5, 10, 20 minutes a day, that's preferable because you're going to keep your momentum going. And even if it has been 5 days, 5 years, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can start where you start and show up and just do your best to eliminate your expectations. Just commit to making 100 bad whatevers. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly. Learning, allow yourself to be a beginner.
Yeah. And then you can go back and look at all of your 100 drawings or 100 whatever.
You could laugh.
Yeah, and see look at the progression.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to be funny. Some of them are just like, oh my God, this is terrible. But everything that you do, every effort that you make, is going to build upon the other things. So it's a series of accumulated successes, right?
Yeah.
Not failures.
You're like, wow, Sari, my stick figure has gotten a lot better.
Yes.
Now he's got a bow tie.
Well, you know what? He's fancy today. He's got to go to a wedding reception or something. Bow tie and a mask. Here we go. Well, thank you so much for having me. I had such a good time with you. This was really cool, and I'm really excited that I was able to come out today. So,
yeah, thanks for being on the show, Sari.
Yes.
All right. We are out.
Ciao for now.
Bye.